Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Star Wars The Bad Batch episode review. This one is going to be for episode 5, which is called Rampage. Overall, an enjoyable episode, but like last week, an episode that I think relied a little bit too much on just making a few references to kind of be the episode. In the sense that it was another case of, we've got to go here to learn a thing, to make some money, and by the end of the episode, all we learned was what we as the audience already knew, but the characters didn't know, that the bounty hunter's name is Fennec Shand, and that they're still not yet at the point where they're ready to reveal who exactly it was that hired her, and that still remains a mystery. So from a plot progression point of view, this one basically, from an audience point of view, didn't really address anything new. The characters now know the name of who they're up against, but that's really it. Other than that, there wasn't really any character development in this episode. Did Hunter really develop in this episode? No. Did Wrecker? No. Tech? No. Echo? No. Omega? Not really. She has a bow now. She has a weapon that I suppose she'll use going forward, which kind of is nice overall, and she got to, again, be involved in her own sort of unique way again. But overall, in terms of The Bad Batch, what did we accomplish this time out? Nothing much, really. Because again, it was another episode where they got jobbed out really easily at the start of the episode, and then Omega has to come in and sort of allow the scramble to happen so they can escape. And then we get into the sort of finishing sequence of the episode, which is that, okay, they're here as part of this guy bounty. They'll get the information in exchange for doing a job for her. The job is that they have to get this, child called Muchi out. But the girl that's there isn't actually called Muchi. It turns out Muchi is a kind of young Rancor who the slavers, the Zygerian slavers, Clone Wars reference, have captured. So they just released the Rancor. The Rancor is the one who goes on a rampage. That's the title of the episode, and that is what most of the episode is. It's this massive, just chaotic action sequence as the Bad Batch try to escape. They realize they actually have to, bring this Rancor in, and how do they do that while also taking out some of the Zygerians? To me, the Zygerians were just a decent reference to the Clone Wars. I didn't feel that they had any of the impact or nuance that they had from the Clone Wars arc, because you just weren't able to set up enough of an arc. In the sense that you had the Anakin and the, I think it was a queen? I can't remember the exact title, but the leader of the Zygerians there. You had the Anakin's dynamic with her. You had, I think it was Obi-Wan and Rex in prison, basically, getting tortured almost. And you had this idea of Obi-Wan is a hero in the show, but anytime he tries to do something heroic, someone else gets punished for him. And that was a very interesting position to put Obi-Wan in. Here, it's just, they're slavers. Look at them, they have slaves. And the leader was just a guy with a weird eye. There was no real significance to him or anything like that. It was just the Bad Batch get captured. They're threatening to make them slaves. Omega comes in, scramble. The Zygerians, I suppose, all get wrecked. And we just come out of it with yeah, cool. I think a missed opportunity was that, it was weird seeing the clones mention the idea, explaining the concept of slavery to Omega, and no one ever acknowledging the fact that, that fits the idea of clones, all too much. And it's not a case where I think they said it like that to allow the audience to think it through. I think if you really wanted to make that an aspect of this episode, you would have addressed it to some degree. You would have had a Zygerian properly mention it, or have Omega or one of the clones really figure out that that's what's going on here, that they're better being away from everyone. And it would have also just placed a little bit of doubt in their minds about Kamino, because obviously one of the people we think has put the bounty out is likely Kamino to try and get their property back, because again, Omega was the target. It feels like the Kaminoans will be the only ones who really realize her significance. So that would have been something to add on to it. but they didn't go for it. So it was just a kind of case of like, oh, that line from Echo describing slavery, it kind of, fits the clones as well, of like, they are property of the Kaminoans. They are like produced and they are sold, it's part of the Kaminoans' business, but I suppose we'll get there in the end. Beyond that, I really felt like the only other part of the episode that was sort of significant was that they actually placed a little bit of importance on Wrecker. Because, again, they referenced the fact that he keeps having problems with his head. He keeps struggling with something going on with his head, grasping it as if there's a pain. A lot of people, I think, dismissed it the first time round, like an episode or two ago, because they just did it like 2 or 3 times and he had actually hit his head in the episode, and it's like, oh, it's just to take him out of action for that episode, and we didn't really deal with it again. He did get his head hit in the last episode, because I think Fennec Shand like smashed his head into a wall, and that was part of how she sort of defeated him. Now, even before the action started, he was like already feeling his head. And there's no way they're going for just some sort of concussion type thing with Wrecker. This definitely is some sort of a setup for the inhibitor chip and something going wrong, and that Order 66 is going to activate for Wrecker. That Wrecker is potentially going to do a crosshairs on it. Now, how exactly they handle that is going to be kind of interesting when they choose to activate that properly. In terms of, I'm guessing, he'll turn on the group and they'll have to fight him, try and take him down, and immediately remove the chip, either to save his life or whatever. Now, again, they don't have to necessarily do the Wrecker is the sort of character they fight for an episode. They could just do a thing where suddenly Wrecker is like completely taken out of action by just the pain in his head, and it's just something where like the inhibitor chip is going to kill him. So they need to get it out, which I think would probably be the episode that would either prompt them to finally discuss what they already know, or return to Kamino, or seek out one of the other clones, like a Rex or someone like that they might need to have the right information. Now, how does that happen? How do they know which clones have disobeyed Order 66 and stuff like that? There's still a few steps to get there, but something like that feels like it's going to happen, and that's something I'm very excited for, because of like how strong the opening 3 episodes were with the crosshairs dynamic that they haven't touched on for a little bit now. Outside of a reference that like, okay, Omega gets a comm system here, and it was previously crosshairs, so that's nice. She has a few pieces of equipment now. But other than that, it's like, we're waiting to get to those points, in that they're still teasing the, okay, how do we figure out who actually hired Fennec Shand? And, Sid is offering them some more, basically mercenary work if they want it. So they have a way to get money. They realize they'll need to do jobs like this to keep themselves going. We'll see where it goes, but I hope there's not too many more episodes like this one or the last one. Again, some of the references were nice, but that's really all I have to say about it. Now, let's get into the whole Rancor thing, because a lot of people are thinking like, oh, because of Bib Fortuna coming in at the end, this is the early reveal of the Rancor that Luke fights in Return of the Jedi. Apparently, new canon books have confirmed that the Jedi, the Rancor in Return of the Jedi is a male Rancor with a different name, and this is obviously a female Rancor named Muchi. So unless there's some continuity error stuff going on, which has happened in the show before. Again, the opening episodes with the the Kanan backstory, they did alter a new canon comic to make that happen in the way that they did. So it's not that they're unwilling to go against canon and retcon things, but this feels a bit like, why do it that way? If this is meant to be that Rancor, why not just have it be a male Rancor named the name from that book that revealed it? I don't think the male or female, the Rancor matters in the grand scheme of this episode. So my guess is just that this is probably just a reference to the idea that Jabba like breeds Rancor, so he always has one or something like that. Again, I don't think we know about like how long Rancors live or how many years it takes them to be fully grown or not. So it is possible that this is meant to just be the mate for the Rancor that Luke fights, or that this Rancor maybe has a child that is the Rancor that Luke fights at some point down the line. It could be one of those two things. Obviously, you'd hope it's not the continuity error, because again, the whole point of new canon was that everything was meant to be fully canon, and at all possible that there wasn't contradictions and everything fit. So purposefully writing in mistakes feels very weird in this era of Star Wars. But again, I guess it is some of the I think it's from one of the earlier books in the new canon. It's like one of the Chuck Wendig books, which are really boring. The like Aftermath ones, I haven't even read them, but just even reading descriptions, it just like reads super boring. Like this was the definition of a lot of those books at that time, of just like not a lot happening. Or not a lot interesting going on, but that was the early sequel trilogy era of the EU, of just that they were so unwilling to write any sequel content that affected the movies, because the movies had no plan, of course. So how could they? So just it's part of that whole kind of like messy situation. But yeah, I don't really have too much else to say. You know, the planet that we were on here, Ord Mantell, like I think we've heard about that before elsewhere, but it didn't super stand out to me as being like anything super specific. We'll see where they go from here. I definitely would like to see a side plot return, where we go back to Tarkin, Rampart, we deal with the first enlisted recruits, set up the stormtroopers, see what's going on in Kamino. Again, that to me is the more interesting dynamic. If we have to have another Bad Batch focused episode, I hope that this is maybe the one where they find out who hired Fennec Shand. I hope that plot doesn't go on for too long. They don't stretch it out needlessly. I think they need to find out sooner rather than later. And then the Wrecker thing, I suppose you're getting to the point now where you're maybe approaching the middle of the season. I think the Wrecker, you know, something going wrong with his chip is a nice sort of mid-season finale that would then set up the, oh, well, the way we saved Wrecker, we can do the same with Crosshairs and get him back. And we have like a big return to Kamino, or they fight him on some other planet. There's going to be some big confrontation about that. It depends on how a lot of these mysteries in the background get resolved. Is it Kamino that's hired Fennec Shand? If so, they probably would want to go to Kamino and address that, or something like that. Who knows exactly? A lot of that stuff. But yeah, I'm still waiting for like a lot of those plots to kick into gear, find out the truth about what exactly makes Omega so significant, and also set up the stormtrooper stuff. I think more heavily. But again, I think what they really need is just a character arc for more of the Bad Batch. Tech still is just Tech, and Echo hasn't really done anything too significant just yet. And that's where I kind of feel like we probably need to meet a Rex, a Gregor, or a Wolf sooner rather than later, so Echo can maybe take more of the spotlight. Because if they do meet Rex, Echo and Rex have a connection, of course, so that would be a really significant dynamic to have. But we're probably still a few episodes away from that. But like I said, I didn't really dislike this episode or anything like that. It's just that I wouldn't say this was like a particular blow away episode. It was just good, some nice references, and that's really all I have to say. So that's been the video. So let me know your thoughts on this episode. Thanks for watching, and bye.